All right. All right, chat. Well, it's a Monday morning, and we are here and ready to go. We are here and ready to go for our breakfast stream. It's been a while since I've done this, and my car is in the shop getting regular treatment, so we're going to go get some breakfast. This time I actually know where I'm going. And then we're going to go get maybe some tea and just sit around and chat once people come in. This is always an impromptu sort of thing, but I enjoy doing these once in a while, and it's been a little while, so welcome to the highway, short of the dealer where we're getting this fixed. There we go. Of course, the only problem with this is that I don't actually remember where chat appears on the screen. I need to find it, but I don't recall exactly where it is. Oh, see, we got a new... This would be even closer, but it's not open yet. So... But yeah, so when people come in and comment, I will know that they are ready to go. And I'm traveling light this morning. I have my water bottle, I have my Kindle Scribe, and I obviously got my phone. Although I did bring a battery pack just in case. So... So yeah, so we'll see what happens when chat is occurring. Although again, I don't remember exactly where this shows up, but we'll see. The turnout on these is always somewhat light because I don't post it all over social media and everything for these ones, because I always feel like it's a little more... Yeah, I mean, obviously, if we have tons of people show up, that's great, but I always feel like it's sort of impromptu. I don't usually stream on Monday mornings, or actually Mondays at all. So, but I'm excited for ArvCon coming up. I'm excited for the summer to come. It's going to be a busy summer, but got a lot of great stuff happening, which I'm excited about. So yeah. Also curious how the sound is on this. It's usually pretty good, these things, but actually am going to check though, because I'm... Oh, I can? Alright, good. Good. So it's working the way it's supposed to. Alright, well, we got a classic coming up here, chat. Got everything you need in this little strip mall. You got an eye doctor. Got a liquor store. Got a, what is this? Rings End. Oh yeah, you got like paint swatches. Got a spa. Got a golf place. You got a, another spa. 2 spas. And you got an Oriental Rugs. I always wonder how... I have to assume those make money because they wouldn't exist otherwise, but man, it seems like it's a lot of overhead. Never having bought such a rug, I don't know how much it costs, but this is where we're at, chat, right here. That's right, the time has come. Sherwood Diner in Westport. So this is where we're going to go for breakfast today. Hi. Just one.
Follow me.
Thank you very much.
Did we want anything to drink?
Just water's good. If you can, thanks. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Alright, that's not bad. So, hi, chat. Hello. Alright, let me see. You've got there's one that I usually get at this place. Oh yeah, I found it. I found it, the classic. Although I could also do, I guess I could do an omelet. Problem is I like pancakes and French toast, so that creates a conundrum. Oh, the classic breakfast. No, that's... Breakfasts at diners are always good. Somebody is about. That's right. What's up, Echo? I was like, I'm not wandering among beautiful mountains like you, but my car is being serviced, so in the meantime I stopped at a diner, and I haven't done one of these streams for a while, so I thought I would jump on for an impromptu IRL stream. How are you? I think I'm going to get the Sherwood sampler. That right there. Oops. That's what you want right there. Watching Bonanza. Wow. The original, the old school series? The old school Bonanza series? With Lorne Michaels? Not Lorne Michaels. 1958, yeah. With Lorne... What the heck is... Lorne... Why have I forgotten his last name? He was on Battlestar Galactica, too. As well. The old one. Lorne something. Lorne Green. That's right, that's right. Yeah, and Michael Landon. Man. Yeah, I remember watching that a long time ago, but obviously I was watching in reruns, naturally. 58 is considerably before my time. Yeah. It's so funny that the newer Battlestar Galactica came out of the older one, because the older one was like, it was just a very different series. The newer one was all very like, you know, hip and subtle and dark and all that, and the original was just not that way. So, I mean, it had some elements of it, I guess, but just not in that same regard, so it was always funny to me. Oh, yeah? Wait, though. Every Saturday and Sunday, but did you record it for later? It's Monday, though. You're ahead of me, not behind me, right? Norway's ahead of me, isn't it? Isn't Norway ahead of Eastern Standard Time? Oh, okay. So, well, I just realized that you said you're playing Red Dead Redemption, so you're very much the U.S. West. Exactly, imaginary exponent. Right, yes, that's right. You did say that. Yeah, I know. It's so true, imaginary exponent, and hi, by the way. Yeah, it's so true. Gloomier and darker, which is unfortunate, I feel like, because there ought to be a way to make it an original series, like, interesting and subtle without necessarily being darker, you know? So, but yeah. It makes me wonder what would happen if they did like a new Buck Rogers. You know, like Buck Rogers in the 70s is this goofy kind of, you know, like what would a new modern, in quotes, Buck Rogers look like? Like what's his name, the robot, the Beetle Buck would just be like, Buck, Beetle Buck, 1,000 robots stare, Buck. Alright, well I am ready to order. I know exactly what I'm going to get. Although technically, yeah, I think I am going to get the pancakes. I do like waffles, but I think the pancakes make more sense in this case. Yeah, pancakes for sure. Scrambled eggs. I'm going to get the sampler, so... Yeah. For lunch, cinnamon buns. And then for evening, that's not a bad thing. They actually have cinnamon swirl pancakes. But even though technically pancakes are this way, I try not to get... I try to avoid the dessert for breakfast thing, even though that's kind of what it is, definitionally. But yeah, I agree with you, Imaginary. It's... Yeah, I told the story before on stream, but I used to joke with a friend of mine, a fellow author friend of mine, that we needed to make something light bright to compensate for grimdark, because we had gotten so tired of all the, like, just, you know, and then death and doom and everybody sucks and all the blood and, like... And so our joke was that light bright was basically going to be something where, like the heart, you know, is about bunnies, and, like, the conflict is, will they get back to their burrow before the sun goes down in the sky, so they get a little chilly. Like, that's those are the stakes, you know. But no, I mean, you can have high stakes stories, but it just, man, the freaking brutal, like, yep, you're in trouble, yep, you're destroyed. Not down with that. Right? Yeah, exactly. In the light, bright, distant future of the galaxy, the unicorns pooped rainbows and absolutely nothing happened. But you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be something where it's not just this despairing, you know, oh my god type of deal. But I don't know. Hollywood is probably not on board with my vision. Hi.
How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you? All right. Could I have the Sherwood sampler, please?
Okay.
With pancakes and eggs scrambled, please. Okay, thanks. All right. So the food is now en route. Pancakes, scrambled eggs, bacon, and sausage. I won't have all that now, but I'll save some of it. Right. It's funny, my daughter is a huge fan of Terry Pratchett also, and I was literally just watching... or she was just reading that, rather, the We Free Men yesterday, while I was reading some stuff, and she loves Pratchett. And yeah, Pratchett, I've always felt that Pratchett is really underrated because of his humor, because I think people read his humor and then they think that that's what he is, and he's not like a Piers Anthony, like, let me make a bunch of silly puns and whatever. Like, that's not where Pratchett's at. He's an actually fine, he's a really fine writer. I don't mean fine as in okay. I mean, he's a fine writer. So he deals with stuff that's much more serious, but he does it without making you feel constantly like, you know, like, so. Yes, the We Free Men. Yeah, she loves everything having to do with them. In particular, she loves Pratchett, like, overall, but that in particular is quite something. I'm glad, Echo. I'm glad. Yes, I am. I'll be curious to hear reports on how good Furios is. Man, it must be something. I was reading something that basically everybody talks about being on being on that film. Anyone who ever does a film with that director is always like, it was an amazing experience. I practically destroyed myself. I nearly died, but what an incredible experience. I'm like, what is the insurance like on the set of that film? Like, what is it like to cover Good Lord. Yes, totally. And I think not only does he manage to incorporate those topics, but I think he's just so good at weaving theme into what appears lighthearted on the surface. And obviously some of his books are darker than others, but everything he does, like from his young adult stuff all the way up to obviously his so-called adult work, really is talking about very serious major topics and kind of cleverly concealing it right below this sort of lighthearted, this sense of humor. And it's not easy to get humor right. You know, there are people who do it and you're like, not so much, my guy. So... yeah. No, I'm a big Pratchett fan. And you know, his best friend was Neil Gaiman. Is Neil Gaiman, I should say. He was sadly gone, Pratchett now, but Neil Gaiman. And so, you know, Good Omens and all these things, like Gaiman did a lot of stuff with him. And so in a way, Gaiman is sort of he's kind of his champion and his voice. I mean, obviously Pratchett's daughter is a big part of that too, but as a you know, creative force who was there at the same time, who's a contemporary of Pratchett, Gaiman is sort of carrying that torch forward a little bit. And Gaiman is also an interesting writer who can do humor sometimes, but Gaiman's a different kind. It's not... Gaiman, I think, is sort of inclined towards somewhat the darker side of things than Pratchett is, but it's still not depressing. It's not, you know, like Joe Abercrombie's a great writer, but oh my goodness, like Abercrombie's stuff is just brutal, you know. It's like reading Cormac McCarthy's The Road every day. Like, what? It's good work, but good gravy. So... oh, no, 100%. And see, the thing about Neil is that Neil was really a big part of that because of Neil's experience in television, right? Remember, he's done episodes for Doctor Who. He was one of the people. The Sandman adaptation is something he's managed as well. Good Omens preceded Sandman's adaptation, but still. No, that's the thing, is Gaiman, and also Gaiman, like Coraline, he's done all these other things that have gone to sort of mass media or larger markets, so he has some familiarity with it. So I'm convinced that he's an interesting guy. I've met him twice, and he's very humble, like he really is, but he knows what he's doing in terms of the way the properties work. So I think, and also Pratchett on his deathbed basically asked Gaiman to do this. Like, he was like, Neil, can you please make sure that this stuff, Good Omens, gets brought properly to mass media? And so Gaiman took that very seriously, and you can see the result. Yep. I met him twice. The first time I met him was at a small conference. Yeah, absolutely. I met him at a small conference called Fantasy Matters in Minnesota back in 2007. It was the first of those kind of cons I had ever gone to, and it was before my first novel had been published even. And he showed up randomly. It's like 300, 250, 300 people at this con is small. And he lived in Minnesota, like he lived near Minneapolis. And he was friends with one of the organizer, a guy named Jack Zipes, very famous professor of fairy tale and folklore out there at the University of Minnesota, I think. And so he just showed up, and like he read from the Graveyard Book, which was then not published. But I knew him. I knew of him because one of my field exam, I was doing my doctorate, my PhD. I had done my PhD in 2002. I had finished it and graduated in 2002. And so one of the guys on my field exam committee was a guy named Alan Levitan at Brandeis University, and Levitan had worked with Gaiman on Sandman on a couple of those because Levitan was an expert in Shakespeare and that kind of thing. And so I didn't have anything for him to sign. We didn't know he was going to be there. But he read from the Graveyard Book, which was amazing, and then he did this signing. And so when I got up to him in the line, I was like, I don't have anything for you to sign. I just wanted to tell you that I happen to know Alan Levitan. He's like, oh, Alan Levitan. Oh, it was so lovely. How is he? And blah, 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 blah. And so I talked to him a little bit about him. So fast forward then to 2009 or 10, so like 2-3 years later, and I'm at Worldcon in Montreal. and I'm behind him on the escalator, and we're going up on the escalator, the second floor of where they were holding Worldcon. And at one point, he looked in my direction and smiled. I'm like, "Hi, Neil," and I was like, I know you won't remember me, but I was the guy who met you at, at this small con in Minnesota. He's like, "Oh yes, with Alan Levitan, blah blah blah," and I'm like, do you know how many people this dude must have met, like, between those, in that 3-year span, and he somehow remembered the Levitan story? I was like, so yeah, he's a cool dude. He also, of course, he was married to, I think they're separated now, but he was married to Amanda Palmer from the Dresden Dolls. And so at ReaderCon a few years later, I didn't go up and talk to him, but I saw him show up there, and he had a badge that they made for him. He just showed up randomly, and they made him a badge that said Amanda Palmer's husband, which is very funny because obviously a speculative fiction convention is going to know who Neil Gaiman is. So yeah, he's an interesting guy. You have the opening credits and end credits is nice. I'm sure that he did Echo. It would be right up his alley. I mean, like, he does so much of his stuff in the world of the supernatural, horror adjacent, and he loves Sheen and Tennant. So that was also a really great pairing. Those two are really good as kind of just a collective. So there were a lot of things that went right there. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Here we go, chat. Here's what we got. We got ourselves can I see it? Like that? All right. And there we go. That is the breakfast of the day. Yeah. Food has been achieved. That's American and British English breakfast. It is. But that's basically, like the classic is omelets, right? Or eggs, either bacon or sausage, not both usually, but sometimes, and then pancakes. And usually if you got the full sampler, most American breakfasts also would include potatoes, like hash browns. And then blame Alfred. Well, the nice thing about this is that I eat this, but I don't eat all of it usually, and so I save a little, and then I've got a little bit of a mid-morning snack / portion of lunch. I'm a big leftovers guy. I don't like getting enormous portions of food, but if I do get larger portions, because that's just how they come, then I save it and I eat it. And these people who don't get leftovers, forget them but don't eat them, I don't understand. Sometimes leftovers can sometimes be even better, because sometimes leftovers are the food has had a chance to mix flavors. Anybody who's ever put together like a stew or a casserole knows that sometimes the longer the food is together, the better it tastes when you finally eat it. Oh. 100% better. Hey, what's up, Mike? Wholesome Horror Gaming. Mike, I finally found you to follow you again on Twitter, by the way. As you go through the 65th rebrand. No, I'm just kidding. It's all in the same sort of area. Good to see you. How you doing, Wholesome Horror Gaming? If you folks are not following, by the way, for those of you who see this live or in a VOD, you should totally follow Wholesome Horror Gaming. You will see a lot of his work coming up during ARVCon with videos. It's true. What doctor are you? But you should totally follow. Very entertaining streamer. Super nice guy. And I can't talk about something I'm very excited about regarding the summer. I can't. If I even say anything more about it, I'm going to be giving stuff away. All I will say is for ARVCon, You folks need to be here for Saturday. I mean, hopefully for all of it, but definitely Saturday for the finale of Talisman Adventures. We have a big announcement that will blow your mind. So you'll definitely want to be here for that. You haven't bought new kitchen stuff? Yeah, thanks, X. Did you see that they've now changed the page title too? So now it's like x.com. I'm like, are you serious? I still just call it Twitter. I'm like, that's ridiculous. X. How to destroy a brand in 3 easy steps. But you would agree with me, right? That it is a big announcement. Is that fair to say? Mm-hmm. You will want to be here for this, Imaginary, because it's not just the Talisman Adventures finale. Yeah, exactly. The Talisman Adventures finale, but also you're going to want to be there because it will be all the Talisman players plus Fleos and Ananda. Fleos, who is a regular guest on, and Ananda, who is a full member of Ghosts of Saltmarsh. It's big, yeah. What's up, Kaz? Who is now desiring bacon. This is good bacon, by the way. The key to bacon, crispy. All this, like, apple wood, chewy, like, soup. No. Crispy. Crispy bacon. Although, technically, I do kind of prefer sausage, taste-wise. Yeah. So I have a question, Mike. For those of us who haven't been to the UK, now my mother went to the UK many years ago, and she told me later when I was a child, she told me that the food there was less than wonderful. Oh, thank you, Echo. Thank you for doing that. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Echo. It's very kind of you. But on the food level, I've heard that the Indian... Oh, yeah. That's a good call. Do me a favor, Echo, if you wouldn't mind. I'm obviously away from my computer, but would you mind sending me just a private message in Discord or something? And when I get home, I'll make sure to update it. Thank you. But anyway, Wholesome Heart Gaming, I've heard that the food is, like, shaky, but there are, like... Obviously, tea is incredible, like everything related to tea. But that the food is sort of shaky, but some foods, like Indian food, is really good and so on. It happens to be really good in England. Can you confirm, like, what food is food in England? Would you say food in England is, like, better than advertised? Fine? Up and down? Like, do you have any thoughts about that? That's true. Now you have an inspiration you can use during the Talisman game if needed. Can't be used on yourself, but it can be used on any of your teammates. So yeah, I was just curious. Hey, Illness, how you doing? No, this time I knew exactly where I was going. I am sitting at the Sherwood Diner in Westport. I have had already... Oops, hold on. I've already had... See? Bacon and sausage. And now I'm going to have... I probably could have done without the powdered sugar, but I'll brush that off. Hillness, you back? Are you back Indiana way, or are you back in the big city? A little bit of butter, not very much. Don't really need it. Pancakes are delicious. How you doing, Kaz? You're home this week. I've already had 2 full days. Whoa! You gifted to Undeveloped. Is Undeveloped Bruce here? First of all, thank you, Echo, for doing that. Nice. Okay, that's what I want to hear, Mike. I really like Indian food. Doing well, Kaz. I'm doing well. I am enjoying my breakfast. I hope folks are enjoying wherever you may be, either breakfast or depending on your place in the world, time-wise, that maybe lunch or something like that. Yeah, that's cool, actually. Yep. I didn't know that this was One Republic. This is One Republic? No kidding. Yeah, I brushed off the powdered sugar. I use a little syrup, not very much. America puts the cake in pancake for sure. Oh, it's just going in for regular maintenance. I try to keep this car, since I got the Toyotas, they've been much more reliable. But I bring them in for regular maintenance. So this was just like tire rotation and balance. And then they're doing an oil change a little earlier than they would normally because I have the trip down to Three Rivers Comic-Con in Pittsburgh. So I figured, you know, we're going to be putting a fair bit of more miles in the car, so. It's the mirror again. Yeah. Usually I have lunch and dinner. Oh, no, Kaz, can't do that. Most important meal of the day. Exactly. Exactly, on this pre-con season maintenance. No, man, breakfast is where it's at. You want a good breakfast? And lunch? Actually, Americans do it wrong. Because Americans do little with breakfast, kind of average lunch, and then overboard on dinner. Proper UK food is just beige mush. Can you confirm, Wholesome Horror Gaming, that the tea experience, though, is as good as advertised? Because I've heard that tea, I don't mean the drink, I mean, I guess partly the drink, but I mean the experience, the cakes, the scones, etc., that is legit. That I've heard the tea is no joke. Thank you again, Echo, for that gift. High tea, yeah. I've heard that is no joke. Mm-hmm. Absolutely completely random writing questions are allowed. And that's cool, Echo. Yeah, Talisman Finale should be a lot of fun. Nice. Oh. I am excited. That is right up my alley. I've always felt slightly like I'm a displaced European and specifically a displaced, I haven't decided if it would be like a displaced Scot or Irishman or Englishman or maybe a Welshman. But I've always, like, I don't know, something vibes with me about the experience of, but as I say, well, I can't explain more about this. If I ever were to go to England, he said, I would love to sort of get an experience of being part of that. I want to be able to feel the vibe of it. I mean, I did my dissertation on, court stuff and court masks. Obviously Shakespeare's Globe, I teach that right now. A horror version. Wait, when did I make a Winnie the Pooh? What are you talking about? I don't remember making a Winnie the Pooh story. And also, Hillness, they made more. We thought we did, but there was more there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, public domain. That, Sherlock Holmes, Willie the Steamboat guy, the earliest version of Mickey Mouse, that guy. They're both horrible. Yeah, that's what I heard. Yes. I've been to Germany. I really haven't been through most of the rest of Europe. I've been to just over the border in France. I've been to Austria and Hungary, actually, both. I've been to Greece. I have not been to Spain or to England. 2058. All right, great. Is there a rule of thumb when it comes to writing a book? That's an interesting question, imaginary. So that is completely dependent upon the book. The experience of writing is basically doing a series of questions, answering a series of questions. And the questions that you ask are the things that kind of generate the book. So I have had books where I thought first of a character or a visual. When I wrote Icarus, which later became the graphic novel Icarus, I had gone to a Cirque du Soleil show. And there's this experience, which sort of retells the Icarus story a little bit itself, actually. But there's this picture at the very beginning of the show of this winged creature falling in this shaft of light to the ground, and then all these strange creatures that come around and like see what happened to the creature. And that was so striking to me that I literally, my wife drove home after the show. My wife was driving home so that I could like scribble notes frantically on what that would look like. So that's an example. There it was a visual, and then I was asking questions about what kind of creature, why were they falling, what kind of creatures went around them, what would that world look like, right? Then I've had stories like Greyshade, the one that's going to finish up with Heretic coming up in July, where I wanted to write a story about a man with a conscience who had made a series of terrible mistakes, and what would that person look like? What would a character trying to pursue redemption when what he has done is arguably irredeemable, right? What would that look like? And so all these questions kind of come out. Well, he's a badass assassin, okay. How is he a badass assassin? Because he's really good at these techniques. Okay, well, what do assassins in this world use? Well, they're not going to be using fireballs. They're going to be using magic which is particular to silent assassination. So sound shifting develops from that, this idea of I knock on this little thing and then there's a sound behind the guard that resonates after you knock here, and so the guard is distracted so that you can go up and knock out the guard, right? So it really depends on whether you want to develop from character out, or whether you want to write at a particular theme, or if you have a particular setting. And I would say the Icarus example was probably that first example that I gave, is starting with the setting and the visual of that guy falling into this room, and then what that looks like going forward. Sorry, I had to see your question, so I'm sure there are other people who have commented since then, but so yeah, but it's always asking questions, and the questions that you ask determine the story that you write. And that's the case whether you're doing it on a short story level or whether you're doing it on a novel level. Anything really creative is about, are you generating it from the theme that you want to write about, or the character that you want to write about, or a particular story around a given event, which is really more plot driven, right? Or a setting. If you read The Dervish House, which is Ian MacDonald's book about a near future Istanbul, he really partly wanted to write a story about Istanbul, which is an extraordinary place. And so that city is its own character. And everything proceeds from that. It's a great story. There's great themes there, really interesting characters. But the centerpiece of that story, The Dervish House, is Istanbul. And so that was the thing, right, that he wrote all these questions about. What kind of people live in a city like that? What sort of adventures would they have? Or a premise. China Mieville's The City and the City, which is one of my favorite books, in which there are two cities in the exact same physical space, but residents of each city are not allowed to see the other residents of the corresponding city. And if they do see it and they admit that they see it, they are in breach, and they can actually be taken away by this mysterious group of people that are literally called like breach, and they just come and take you away, and then no one knows what happens to you. So he wanted to write that premise. That was the sort of originally the concept of it, right? That was the idea. And then everything proceeds from there. So it really depends on what kind of thing you're doing, whether you're writing a story that is character-driven, plot-driven, setting-driven, theme-driven. So that is my probably way too reductive answer, but... Yeah, when Wholesome Heart Gaming, I may or may not have heard from you before about these books. At what point, my friend, am I going to see said manuscript of said book? I wrote a story pre-COVID, had Winnie the Pooh in it? Really? I would have to think about that, Echo. I don't remember that. I like Winnie the Pooh, but I don't remember ever writing a story about it. Because given the caliber of role player that Wholesome Horror Gaming is, I have no doubt that his story, his novel, will be quite good. And also, of course, you can share whatever you want to share. As you know, I'm mostly joking, but everything about writing to me is about answering these questions and thinking about, if you think about how a tree grows with these concentric circles as it gradually grows outward, I think of it a lot that way. The initial questions that you ask create answers that build up the story that you're writing. And you're basically writing it in these layers, in these concentric circles. In a short story, you don't have a lot of those circles because you don't have a lot of time. So you're dealing with usually a single idea or a couple of ideas at most. When you get into a novel, you have more themes that you're writing about that you're addressing, and so you have more circles. But it's that idea of writing and then building from the initial premise, the foundation that you originally had. So, and by the way, that can also help you when you get lost. If you're writing a story and it just kind of slows down, I always suggest to go back to the theme. What are you trying to say? What were you trying to say? What did you want to convey? It's very similar to life. If you sort of live your values, then a lot of questions get answered when you're trying to live your values. And we're not perfect at it, obviously, but that's the theory. And you want to live, I think, you want to write, if you will, your values and stay consistent with what you're presenting. Nice. Okay, cool. No, that's awesome, man. I am, no, I mean, obviously I'm biased. I do a bit of writing myself, as you know. But I think someone who has a real understanding of character and enjoys the experience of story, I'm interested to see how that kind of comes out in your case. So that's cool. That's cool. June is a writing month. Yeah. No, I'd be happy to. And I'm happy to look at it, and I'm looking forward to it. I was obviously just teasing. I don't, you can send me whatever you do or don't want to send, but yes, I'd be happy to see it, sure. I've done that actually already for a mutual friend of ours. Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, you know, Echo, like humans in general. Mm-hmm. One of those people may have been one of the people whose writing I looked at, in fact. Echo. But we're built-in storytellers, right? I mean, we're hardwired to storytell. And so it doesn't surprise me that when people are brought together and they love role-playing and all that, that we build story out of that. I love the experience of having, and I will say, the classic, do you enjoy writing or do you enjoy having written? I'm kind of neutral on the process. I am very much not neutral on the product, though. So that's true. And if anyone's going to Gen Con, by the way, I know Hilness has already done this, but if anyone has had the opportunity yet if anyone's going to Gen Con, please make sure that you mark in your event list. I have workshops and panels that I'm doing as part of the Gen Con Writer Symposium, including a D&D with Writers event. I know Hilness is going to be there. He's been at, I think, every one of them, or almost every one, since these started. And this is going to be the conclusion of the second trilogy of Forbidden Library Adventures. So it'll be a series of 6 sessions over the course of the last 6 years. Mm-hmm. That's cool. That's very cool. Wholesome Hour Gaming, yeah. That'll be fun to read. We did not write because we were... Well, 2020 Gen Con basically didn't... I mean, I didn't go because of COVID, and it all kind of blurs together because I've been doing it for so many years that I don't remember which years. But I think that's right, because we did 2020 last year. We did the second part of the second trilogy. Before that was Night and Day, which was the first part of the second trilogy. So yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, so I think that's right. I think we did not do one in 2020-21, and we picked it up in 2022. That's right. Yeah, because I couldn't go because it was like the worst timing. I can't. September is impossible. No way. So I know you folks will be chatting. I just want to answer Imaginary Exponent's question. When you know to stop asking the questions, yes. Well, there's 2 answers to that. One is an unsatisfying answer, and that is that it depends. It happens. It tends to happen when you sort of figure it out almost by osmosis. You're like, oh, this feels like the right time. You kind of get it by feel in terms of when you need to move on. The second thing is that I think it's important to do world building ahead of time, but I think a particular problem with speculative fiction is that I think fantasy is so in love with world building that it runs into what I call the gazetteer problem. And the gazetteer problem, or another way to look at it, is the encyclopedia problem, where you have so many things you want to say about your world that you kind of lose the plot, literally lose the plot, because nobody really cares about your, coin system. Nobody super cares about the sewers that you've built for the city, except insofar as they affect the story. You need to know something about these things because it's the only way that you can make the story authentic. But it is not the case that you need to have figured out everything, or more importantly, that you need to have told everyone everything. Because then what you're doing is it's like you're reading a role-playing source book instead of reading a story, right? So I would say, to me, if you know that the theme of your story is about faith, redemption, what is the line between faith and dogma? How do we define ourselves as people? What is our identity about? If you want to deal with those things, right, and that was sort of those are some of the central themes of the Grey Shade work that I'm doing, the Grey Assassin trilogy, then things that are extraneous to that may be interesting, and maybe they'll show up in a certain tabletop role-playing game. Pre-order it now, by the way. Pre-order it now. But they don't have to show up in your novels. So the enough of the world building is it serving the function of why you started the book in the first place? And you can be quite ruthless about that, Most of my novels, now I don't write incredibly long, but most of my novels are somewhere between, 80,000 and 100,000, maybe 105,000 words or so. Heretic, I think, is just over 90,000. Renegade was like 79, and Grey Shade was like 83 or something, right? So in that case, there's a certain word count that I try to generally kind of keep in my head. So I don't have time to do absolutely everything. But I'm establishing those limits on myself because I don't want to create a doorstopper fantasy where you just eventually are like, what are we even talking about? Like, why does this matter? So I try to be very ruthless about, is this serving the thematic concerns of the story that I was putting forward? And if not, then I don't need it. At least I don't need to put it in the manuscript. I may have it in a separate document that I can look at or whatever, but I don't need to represent that to the audience. Is it important to the thematic concerns of the book? Is it important to the character? If so, include it. If not, oops, sorry. Sorry about that. All right, now, yeah. Oh, cool, Echo. Yeah, that's exactly right. You should not spend 20 years creating new languages in history. Well, this is the thing. Even Tolkien ran into this, right? That Tolkien also had stuff that really... one way to think about this is the Silmarillion is kind of the source book for Lord of the Rings. You know, like I'm being very, very reductive. It's obviously its own story, but like the Silmarillion really is where a bunch of stuff goes that Tolkien wouldn't have put even in the appendices of the Lord of the Rings, for example. So, right, that's very right, Echo. Yes, would the cold itself serve to help the plot along? Exactly, because remember, any detail that you put in the book, assuming it's coming from the perspective of a character, tells you everything about a character. If someone shows up in Atlantis, right? The character just shows up in Atlantis. What the character notices about Atlantis is going to say everything about the character, not as much about Atlantis. If I'm looking at the buildings around me and like the soaring arches and the load bearing pillars and stuff, you might think that I am an architect character. If instead I'm looking at are there any homeless people in Atlantis? Where do people live? Where do they stay? How are they fed? Then I'm thinking about someone who's not an architect, but is thinking more about kind of human on-the-ground concerns. Maybe they're a social worker. Maybe they have, right? So what you choose to observe and then put into your narrative is going to say quite a bit about the character, which is why it's so dangerous to make yourself a self-insert, which basically means you put yourself into a given character. That's why that's such a mistake. Elements of yourself will show up in every character you write, right? There are certainly elements of me in Greyshade, but there are a lot of things that are not similar about me in Greyshade. Why? Because I want to give a story in which you're learning something about me, the author, yes, but where you're learning quite a bit about Greyshade, the character, and Karen, the character, and Rilia, the character, and so on. And so what they observe and what they value and what they think is important is the stuff that ends up in the story. And no. In fact, can I just say, Wholesome Wargaming, about that length thing? I really think that fantasy has a tendency to overwrite. In fact, I don't think it, I know it. There's a tendency to go too much. Even classics. Okay, now you all know that the premiere of a new Dune campaign is happening on my channel as part of ARVCon coming up next Monday, right? A week from today. Now listen, spectacular world building in Dune. Frank Herbert was like, spectacular world building. There's great work there. But there's a reason that it's going to take him 3 movies to get freaking Dune done, okay? And that's because Dune is dense. Like, I've read it, but I'm going to tell you right now, it was a bit of a slog. Because, oh my God, I personally think the book's a little overwritten. It's a little overwritten. It's a little much. And it comes from a different era. It's the 1960s, so whatever. But it's a little overwritten. And so, obviously, it's brilliant and great and, all that. But it's a little much. And I think that's science fiction even. That's not even fantasy. And science fiction doesn't do this as much as fantasy does. You don't need to have 200,000 words, 100,000 of which are about, economic, sanctions in island nations or something, right? Like, you don't need to do that. Focus on the theme, the value that you wrote the story for, an exploration of character. Even the Dervish House, I mentioned this, right? Ian MacDonald, everything he's ever written makes it feel like he's from that place, including Istanbul. He's Scottish, he's not born in Istanbul, but he did great research there. And yet that book never bogs down. You never feel like, oh my God, if I hear one more story about some, coffee shop on this corner, never bogs down because he's focused on the values and the themes of that story. So yeah, don't worry about that wholesome horror gaming. If you write a novel that's like 40,000 words, that's pretty short. You maybe need to think about that. If you write a book that's like 200,000 words, maybe need to think about that. And there can be exceptions there too. But if you're floating somewhere in the 80, 90, 100,000 range, and also thrillers and mysteries tend to be shorter and more punchy, so like 70,000 words, 75,000 words. Whereas especially epic fantasy is like on the larger end, on the higher end, but it absolutely does not need to be bloated. Hey, G Pudding. What's going on, man? Exactly. That's true. Okay, that's true. Dune Part 3. Yeah, well, I mean, so, okay, I'm about to publish my third dark fantasy, Greyshade, Renegade, and Heretic. And as I said, Greyshade was 83, Renegade was about 79.5, Heretic is about 91, 92. Hey, Effect Life. Good to see you. Good to see you, G Pudding. Good to see you, Effect Life. So about 92,000. So, like, if you put that all together, it means I will have spent almost 250,000 words in the life of Greyshade, I guess, in a trilogy. But all of that is totally in that range. You're right, Echo, about Dune Part 3, but I guess my point is to tell the story. I mean, obviously there's more Dune books. Even that one novel is just like, yeah. Has to be the length that the story is. Best work being done in voice right now in speculative fiction is happening in science fiction, and it's Martha Wells' Murderbot series. The best work being done in voice. Murderbot as a character has an extraordinarily good voice, and each of those books is a novella. Showed up on Tor.com first. So I don't know what that is, like 45,000 words maybe? 40,000 words? Every one of those books? Now again, it's science fiction, which tends to run shorter, and it's sort of this sort of compressed stuff, but still, it's like, it's brilliantly done, and it is not a doorstopper. You would have to get 3 books to get to like one of Brandon Sanderson's, right? Mm-hmm. You would have to get 3 books out of Martha from that stuff. And Martha's written epic fantasy, and she can write longer, of course, but does not need to be like that. Yeah, I was talking about that before, Effect Life, because my car was in the shop. In fact, okay. Trying to watch on mobile is not fun. Good to see you, Effect Life. Wait a minute. Genly followed me. Genly, how are you doing? You weren't already following me? You're helping your dad gardening? Oh, that's cool. Very cool. Then they can stop. No, and again, like, like, wonderful world building. There's a lot of good things to like about Dune. But as far as the reading of it, it's dense. I told this story. After I finished reading Dune, I read The Last Wish, which is Sapkowski's The Witcher, the stories of the Witcher stories combined together. And it was like, oh my God, it was a breath of fresh air. And it's nothing against Dune, but it was like I had been slogging through like thousands of years of history, and then we get The Witcher, which is so like snappy and crisp, and oh man. So, but would I argue that The Witcher is obviously better than Dune? No, of course not. I think they're both good in their own way, but boy, just as the experience of reading it, The Last Wish was a breezier read. Oh, no problem. No problem. Good to see you, Genly. I hope all is well. I hope you're hanging in there. It's good to see you. Good morning. So yeah, Mike, the length needs to be, and the material needs to be appropriate to the situation. And so, again, there are kind of conventions, right? There are conventions about these things. So there are conventions about how long something tends to be in a given genre. But that doesn't mean, right, that you need to write... There's a range, is my point. So, should you be writing a 60,000 word fantasy? Probably not. Should you be writing an 85, 90, 95,000? Absolutely. Oh, I got you, Genley. No problem. Sorry if I hit you with too many notifications then about that. How do you ensure you give the reader enough information? Okay, so again, the unsatisfying answer is it depends, and you kind of get a sense of it based on feel. But also, it depends a little bit on the nature of the character you're doing. So, my character Greyshade, for example, is very cerebral, right? And a lot of what he's thinking about is he's in his head a lot because he's alone a lot, and he's trying to figure out how he feels about certain things a lot. And so he tends to be very... he goes through things a lot. Like he processes things a lot. So there's a lot of more sort of internal questioning and exposition. But then there are other characters that are more just the facts, ma'am. And for them, you don't want to spend a lot of time working on that. I really think that one of the things that guides this, actually, is voice, I would say, Wholesome Horror Gaming. So I have a character in a book called Theft and Memory, or the story is called Theft and Memory. It's in the book Rogue Artists, which came out from Athos a couple years ago. And in that story, it's about a thief who's one of the best thieves of the city, whose particular ability is that they can jump from a work of art to another work of art. They can literally be in a painting and jump to another painting, which makes it very easy to get past guards and security systems and things like that. So there, a lot of what, but they're very sort of like, well, if you say what I mean, right? Like it's very kind of on the streets sort of type of voice. And so there, someone who'd be going through a big, refined, like, here's how I think about the city's approach to its homeless population. Like, they're not going to think about that, right? They're going to be like, listen, Burke, here's what I believe about this, right? So the voice almost cuts down on the exposition, if that makes sense. Because, again, you're expressing what would be important to the character. You have to give enough context to make sense for the reader, but generally it will make sense to the reader if it makes sense to the character. And we ourselves, as we go around in our everyday lives, are constantly doing this, right? Like, we're constantly thinking, how do I'm going to go there and then do this. Oh, wait, I can't do that. Maybe I'm going to do this other thing instead. And then, oh man, I want to see the Celtics game tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, right? Stream of consciousness, which is popularized in the early 20th century with the modernists, is basically just taking our usual thought process and running it onto a book. So we do an aspect of this all the time. We have an internal narrative in our head all the time. So if it's important to the character, it will tend to be important to the audience. It will tend to be important to the reader. So I would say give them the exposition that they need for it to make context sense for the character or characters, and that will do quite a bit to sort of forward your world. You can always fill in more. You can always add more. You can always say, I want to give more context to this. But I always want to think of it from the developing of character out, rather than here's a world and now I'm going to have a character walk around in it. Like I built a Lego set and now I want to have my character play around within it. Again, that's cool too, but it's a different kind of way, I would say, than I usually write. My different feelings about that imaginary exponent, I'll get to Wholesome Horror in a second. My feeling about that imaginary exponent is I would respectfully disagree a little bit. The thing about the Lord of the Rings is that one of the things that gets thrown at it all the time is like there's too much there.
you need to remember that if you put the three books together, you would basically reach what a sort of standard, in quotes, fantasy often is these days, which is the way that Tolkien wanted to do it. On their own, Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King are not that long. And even at that, I teach this in my classes this way. The opening of Fellowship of the Ring has this long extended section about Frodo and the Shire, right? The question is, why would you do that? Like, why don't we just get into the action? Like, why don't we get out there? Because you need to understand why Frodo is willing to do what he does. What is he fighting for? He is fighting for, essentially, Tolkien's England, right? He's fighting for the natural world, for the rolling hills, for the little rivers, for the cultivated farms. He's fighting for what he views, what is his home. And if you don't know what he's fighting for, then the slog, he's fighting for the potato, then the slog at the end doesn't make any sense. Why would you go through all of that? And the answer is, you need to establish the baseline of what the world is. Because remember, spoiler, but the book has been out for 90 years, 80 years. You need to remember that the book itself, at the end of it, Frodo, of course, can't stay in the Shire. The Shire has been saved, Frodo says, but not for me. Well, why would he even have done this then? Because at a certain point he has to know that the Shire will never be his again, that he can't save it for himself. And the only way that makes sense, the only way it makes sense, is if you establish how he is, and Sam, too, are the living incarnation of what the Shire is, of the resilience of those people, of the humility, of the care, of the simple magic that they represent. And you can't do that by saying, so they lived in this awesome green place. Now, I'm being facetious. I recognize that to a modern audience that is slow, and it probably would never have ended up in 2024 the way that it was then. It was a different time, and they would have required him to speed things up. But I would argue that given the scope of the book as a whole, if you think of all three books as one big, large book, which is what Tolkien himself thought of it as, it's necessary, and not that long, to establish the baseline of what matters. And so that's the way I would argue kind of that position. Yes. Yes, I have wholesome horror gaming. All right, chat. I'm about to give you a don't ever do this story. When I first wrote Gray Shade, I was feeling very smug about technique. And I was like, all right, some people write first person, some people write third person. I am going to mix them together. I'm going to have it be first person on missions, but third person elsewhere. It's going to bring them right into the action. That, chat, was the stupidest idea anyone has ever had. It is so dumb. It's confusing, it's pretentious, and it has no reason to exist within the story. And having to go back after 60,000 words of Gray Shade had already been written and retrofit it so that it was all first person was dumb. Don't be me, okay? Don't do that. That was dumb. Oh, God. It was one of those things that sounded so good. I'm like, it's so clever. And then I'm like, you know why you're not James Joyce? Because you can't do that shit, okay? I mean, and in fairness, right, James Joyce doesn't write Ulysses until after he writes Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. First, he had to prove that he could write a regular book, then he can write Ulysses, and then he can write whatever the hell Finnegan's Wake is. So, not a good idea. So yes, I have had to do that, and it was not fun. I was doing a lot of finding and replacing, let me tell you. And remember, when I started writing, I was writing in the days before word processors. I was writing on typewriters, people. And if I had had this situation when I was writing on a typewriter, God help me. That's right, in ye olden times. Graduated high school in 1990, so we didn't get our first computer till the first semester of my freshman year. We got a Packard Bell 386. and then I got a leading edge 486. So I wrote my first word processed document was my take-home philosophy 101 exam when I was a freshman. And then I never looked back, but it's my regular computer, yeah. I write a lot on my laptop because I like being able to be different places when I write. I like cafes for writing. Sometimes I write just in my office, depends. But yeah, I would say probably 70% of my work is written on a laptop, maybe 30% on my desktop computer. And I just use Microsoft Word. I used to use WordPerfect when that was a thing. Some people use things like Scrivener. I've tried Scrivener and it just doesn't click with my brain. I think I'm a more linear thinker when it comes to writing that way. And that way I can have outlines. I write my outline for a larger novel. I'll write my outline chapter by chapter because I'm going to use that a lot. Chapter by chapter outlines get used a lot anyway. And I have that as a separate document, and then I just write it in Microsoft Word. Sometimes I do. Mm-hmm. I like cafes to write in. I always have. I really put in my headphones and whatever, and I'm just writing, and it's fun to just look up and see other people doing the same thing. I don't know. It's a cool thing. Oh, God, the thing about Scrivener is... So here's the thing about Scrivener. Scrivener, and again, I know a lot of people who use it and love it, but the thing about Scrivener is that Scrivener is sort of like making a digital version of a corkboard. And I feel like at a certain point, if you're going to do that anyway, why not just make an actual corkboard? You know what I mean? Like either use technology or use your, like, you know, use the stuff that it's replacing. So if people want to do an actual physical corkboard, that's cool. But for me, I'm always like, why am I dragging things around this sort of like mental map or whatever, or whiteboard or whatever, when I could just be writing on a whiteboard or using my freaking computer, you know? Yeah. Microsoft Word, baby. I mean, I still actually prefer WordPerfect, and I have at home, I still have Microsoft Word 2010 that I'm using. And then the one that I have on my laptop is, I'm lucky that my university, I get a new laptop. They have a program with IBM, now Lenovo, so we get new laptops every 4 years. They just upgrade and refresh them, and they do this for students as well. So as faculty, I get one of those. So I've written my last few books. Gosh, I mean, I've probably written every book of mine that's been published using a laptop, because they started this program when I was like maybe 3-4 years into St. John's. So I've probably written every published book now that's out there, maybe with the possible exception of my first edition of my academic book. Second edition I wrote on the laptop was on a St. John's laptop using whatever the version of Word was at the time. Microsoft whatever. Mm-hmm. Right, and I totally respect that about the physical act, but like, but it just feels to me like it's replicating. It's like putting an overlay, right? It's like I'm typing away, and it's like, okay, pretend you're doing a physical thing, and I'm like, you could just do the physical thing, you know. I hear you. No, that's totally fine. And everyone, it's going to hit different for everybody. Some of the people that I talked about how Dune was a big slog for me, and they're going to be like, no, I just ate that up like candy, like give me more. Different strokes and all that. I just think that Lord of the Rings is a more, and you have to remember Lord of the Rings is my favorite work, so this is a love thing for me, but I think that it is a written, I think that Tolkien is a spectacularly good writer, actually. I think that sometimes people are like, well, and he's good at world building, but I think he's a very gifted writer. I think he's very good at building tension. I think he's very good at character development. I think he has lines that stay with you forever. I think that his tapestries are astonishingly rich. He has limitations. There are not nearly enough, female characters, not nearly enough women in his books, and he was quite religious in a way that it didn't hurt him the way it hurt Lewis. C.S. Lewis in Narnia is like, that just hits you over the head with Christianity. With Tolkien, it's infused in the work, but it doesn't become the work, in my view. But still, there are limitations to it and sort of restrictions. But having said that, I think that he's a really rich and subtle writer. He can be chilling. You know, and you know, his own experience in World War I, watching all of his friends die around him in the trenches in France, really informed his work. You know, the stuff with the you know, the dead marshes, and the people lying in the water with the little lights, as Gollum calls them. Gollum is one of the richest characters ever set to page. People who say like he doesn't know how to write character need to go back to school and go read Gollum. Look at Gollum and tell me that he doesn't understand rich psychology at the deepest level. Gollum is a wonderful, wonderful, deep character. And there are others. Faramir is great. You know, even Frodo and Sam, and just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stuff. So he's a very lyrical writer, but I think he's more subtle and more. I think he's a good line-by-line writer than people give him credit for. So, but that said, you know, obviously different strokes and all that. And I can totally hear you that it does slow people down. I've certainly had that. I've been teaching it for years, so I know that it slows other people down too. I just think there's a richness to it if you let yourself kind of... Golem. Yeah, not at all biased. Yeah. And I do a little bit of that physical writing. I don't need to have the physical writing to feel like I'm invested in the work. But when I'm taking notes on something, I still to this day have like a... I mean, that's when I'm using the thing. This is sitting on top of a Kindle Scribe, partly because I wanted to have something where I could write notes and not just have to have constant using of notebooks around me, because I can do it and save it in a notebook form. So handwriting is still very prominently important for me in terms of note-taking and things like that. But in terms of long-form writing, nah. Typing, I can just go much more quickly. For me. These people around me, I'm sitting near a couple people at the counter and stuff. I wonder whether they're just listening to this and being like, why is this dude giving a class on writing in the diner? So, typing does seem like a winning strategy. It's so, like, word processing has meant that a lot of people can like, send in work that probably isn't the best work, and maybe that's a problem. But in terms of ease of use, I wouldn't want to go back to my typing days, let alone my handwriting days, in terms of actually producing work. Yeah. Who is he talking to? Well, the thing is, too, right now I have this flip so I can see what I'm streaming. So they basically look like I'm just talking to myself. Can I just get a box for this, please? Sure. Thank you. You know, is he talking to himself? Like, why is he speaking to his own image on screen? But whatever. I got my favorite jersey on today, chat. I got my Venetian football club, and I love it because a freaking flying lion. I love this jersey. Sports ball. Yeah. Look. A lot of sports has storylines, okay? A lot of them have storylines. Okay, we're saving almost a full pancake from today, saving a full strip of bacon, and sausage. That's what's left of the meal. It's like a quarter cup of flour. Yeah, probably. That's probably true. But since I've been talking largely not about the food, but about, writing construction, I do enjoy these, actually. I enjoy the IRL chatting anyway, but I also enjoy talking writing. I love talking shop, so... Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you hear a lot at panels and conventions and things like that, it might be fun to do some of these for sure. And then just the check whenever you get a chance. You came by. Thanks. One of the things I love is you hear people talk about the idea that writing is so individual, and that's true, that writing is very individual, but also Writing is, thank you very much. There are best practices, right? So that's part of the problem, is there are best practices about things. And so, like, there are better ways to do things and worse. That doesn't mean that one way is superior. So sometimes people do extensive outlines before writing. Some people don't do that. The classic gardener versus architect, like, do you build something ahead of time? You're an architect. Do you let things grow organically, like George R.R. Martin says? He's a gardener. And that's totally fine. But it is true that whatever you do in your writing does have to be intentional. So it can't be an accident, right? It can't be a mistake. It can't be like, whoops, I don't know what I'm doing, right? You do need to be intentional about why you're doing what you're doing. Why you're doing what you're doing is up to you, and it's based on what works for your best practice, works for your process, and that's all true. But it's not true that, like, anything works perfectly. Like, that's not true. If you're just taking a whirl, that's how you get a lot of started, like the beginnings of novels or the beginnings of stories, and not the endings of them, because people get burned out or they get frustrated or they get tired because they don't really know what the hell they're doing and they're not thinking about it intentionally. So thinking about work intentionally, thinking about how to produce work intentionally, means that you are, whatever your process is, you're putting it together in a way that you meant to do it. And it may be wrong, and it may be something you have to learn, and you may have to do it a bunch, and all that's true. So your process is individual, but it has to be intentional. And so that's why I think things like our discussion here are important, because you learn how to be a better version of the writer that you can be based upon the intentional choices that you make. And sometimes you have to make different choices as you get older, or as your needs and priorities as a writer shift, or as a creative in general. But I am a big believer in the fact that whatever your process, you've got to be intentional about it. That, I'm convinced, is the case. Yes. Totally agree with that imaginary exponent. Can you imagine the equivalent of Alexa, like, computer self-destruct, and like Alexa's like, destruct immediately. Like, no, I didn't say that. Like, no. Not to mention that it also means that if you're mute or if you are speech disabled, right, somehow those people are not provided for in the future. Don't buy that. Yeah, exactly. Right. The classic, I'm going to say it louder so the computer understands it. Right? Imaginary? Is it going to rain today? I'm sorry, I don't understand, Well, this is what I'm saying, G. I actually agree with you. I know you're joking, but I actually agree with you. I think the idea is that the disability would be accommodated for things. Maybe it's because you have something, like the attempted version of what Neuralink is supposed to be, even though Neuralink is Elon Musk, so please. But the concept of it, maybe it's picking up on brainwaves, maybe it's paying attention to motions of fingers and things like that. Any number of things would be designed to allow accommodations to exist. But the idea that, 500 years in the future, we are going to be driven by the exact same sort of, restrictions that we are now is silly. I think it is the case that we will still have disability 500 years in the future. It may have shifted. I think 500 years in the future, what we, certain things will be the same, like what we value. As long as we are humans, we will continue to value things like love. We will continue to be angry at each other at times. We will continue to be drawn together in community. I am convinced that will not change. How it manifests may be different, but the sort of core of our emotional being is going to be with us for a very long time. But that said, how we accommodate it, how we express it, that will change, as it has changed throughout history. So that's one of the reasons why writing science fiction that's really compelling is an interesting process, because we tend to overestimate where our tech is going to be and underestimate where people are going to be. And I think that's kind of an interesting line here, a sort of thing to consider. Hi, Div. Right, well, sometimes because it depends on identity, right, Div? I mean, sometimes it's about It's about more like we're not lesser people. It goes the argument. We're not lesser individuals because we're not lesser individuals because we are differently abled. And I think I have sympathy to that view. I just think that, figuring out what that's going to look like is going to be complex and is not going to be, we're going to make something that understands what we say when we speak it, and especially when we say it super loudly. The swimming team's having trials at Lucas Oil. Oh, no joke. Wow, Hillness, they're just going to go right on the field and just swim on the field. Boy, I'll tell you what. I guess if you could swim really fast on the Lucas Oil field, then you'll be able to do it anywhere. Yes, and that's a can of worms I don't want to, yes. Div, I don't want to get into that here because I want to make sure that I'm respectful to the topic, and I'm not dealing with that kind of disability. So, but I'm with you that they're building an Olympic-sized pool on top of this bed. No kidding. Oh, that's super cool. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to think about in terms of should the disability be core to your identity? Is the disability the core of your identity? Or is your identity separate from and sort of adjacent to that or infused with that? And again, it's a very complex question that I really don't want to get into here right now, but yeah, I mean, that's something to certainly consider for sure. So they're just building the pool and then they're getting rid of it? Right. Right. Well, I mean, it's a sad story now, kind of because of what happened later on, Div, but I always think about Oscar Pistorius with the carbon fiber prosthetic legs, like how extraordinary that was, and some people claim that gave advantages because of the spring of the legs and everything. As I say, that had a very unfortunate end to it, but that story. I just think, I think it's important to continually broaden our understanding of what it means to be abled and disabled. And I think that's an important discussion that everybody, abled and disabled alike, need to continue to have. And also to recognize that the breadth of what a disability is very consistent. To be clear, if on a certain level, this being short-sighted, we're not for the very easy corrective vision of I put on glasses. This is a disability. My vision is blurry. I can't read what's on the coffee makers over there or what that picture title says, right? I mean, I can see things around me. I'm not blind, but my vision is quite blurry. I'm nearsighted, and I have been since I was a child. Because I can put glasses on, instantly I have, quote, no disability, but the reality is that before corrective lenses existed, so disability so the reason I point that out is that all of us in a way have adaptations that we've had to make, and if we could think of it that way and not think this person is disabled and thus in a different category, and thus we can discriminate against or treat them, separate them from society because they're not me. First of all, we shouldn't do that anyway morally, right? But even if you were telling people directly, disability is a spectrum, I guess is my point. And if we thought about it that way, there might be more empathy in general for how this all works. But as I say, I don't want to get heavily into that because I don't want to be reductive about it, and I certainly don't want to be ableist, unintentionally ableist about it either. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've seen this, if anyone saw this story of, there was a person who had I don't remember the term for this, but it was this really bad tremors, right? And they figured out a way to wire certain electrodes into the brain and then could provide this very light stimulus that he wouldn't even notice on the sort of conscious level. And he went from this to this. Like literally just slight shifting like this as opposed to this. So he went from not being able to drink a glass of water without it spilling all over him to being able to just... And like they showed this happening And the guy just wept, and I was like, because he couldn't believe like how his life is altered, right? That's extraordinary. Like that's science fiction stuff, and that's the best kind of science fiction in a way, right? Isn't that a wild? And like his family was crying, and I was like, I had tears because just watching it as this random person, I couldn't believe that. So that's extraordinary. I feel like that's, if you're the scientist who designs that, man, you got to go home and be like, look in the mirror and be like, had a good day today. You know what I mean? Oh, wait. What is this? Mar, I have essential tremor. They replaced that with ultrasound burning. Do you mean that, I'm curious about this, Mar. So do you mean your essential tremor was largely, in quotes, cured or reduced? Is that, no, seriously, Wholesome Heart Gaming, it's, and I know you're in this field, the tech field, like, that's so amazing, man. Yeah. No, for sure, imaginary. Yeah, can you imagine? Like, I would go home, if I'm the scientist who did that, I'd go home and look in the mirror and be like, my life has officially had value. You know? That's so incredible, Mar. So it was reduced because it, yeah, like, which is something similar they do for heart palpitations in certain cases. They do an ablation. So it burned the area of the brain. That must, can I ask you, if you don't mind me asking this, what was with the experience of that? Oh, you were going, you haven't had it yet. Oh, okay. Man, that is wild, Mar. Mar, if you don't mind telling me later on after you've been through this, obviously this is completely up to whatever you feel comfortable, but I would be very fascinated to see how that actually works for you. Like if it does that would be so amazing to me to see. Good luck with it. That's really amazing. Yeah, I can't even imagine, Mar. Like, I couldn't, the thing is, it's so, I cannot describe, like it's like this to like this. It's like, it's improved by like 90%. Of course. Yeah. But I'm sure Mar does that. You have to understand the side effects of anything, for sure. But the thing is, like, that's what I mean. Like, when people talk about we've done nothing, we have made extraordinary progress as a species. We've also gotten better at beating each other up and killing each other. But we are also have made extraordinary steps in curing each other. Like, so, anyway, yeah, please, I'm sure you know the risks about it, but obviously take care, Mar. But yeah, please do let us know, because that's wild. There's a person in the Scottish Parliament who has essential tremor, and I actually knew one of the people in my department who retired a few years ago had essential tremor, and it was just like it wasn't precursor to anything. Like, it was just, they just had essential tremor. Yeah, wild. That's one where I feel like, now remember, as a humanities person, I feel like we provide the foundation for a lot of why what people do in the sciences matters, because we're talking about what it means to be human and why it means to be human. So those things are still there. But man, that's one where, as a humanities guy, I just look at the scientists, I'm like, that's so wild. You just sit in a seat. I can't even, you know. And Mar, do you know what? And you know what about that? You all know this a little bit. You may have heard. Yes, I've heard of that whole smart gaming. You probably have heard. Some of you may have heard about the. Can I pay? Yeah, I'm able to do that. Thank you so much. Have you heard about the? Oh gosh, I need to remember. Oh no, I lost it. Yes, no, I got it back. You may have heard of this thing called CyberKnife, which is treatment for particular kinds of cancer, where instead of, it basically is a laser which focuses from outside the body inside the body, but doesn't involve cutting outside the body. So it's like, it's not non-invasive, but it is definitely not, thank you very much, like cut open the body type invasive. Do you know that the CyberKnife, the direct inspiration for the CyberKnife was Star Trek, the tricorder on Star Trek? When I was in college at the University of Connecticut in the early 90s, there was a bad outbreak of meningitis. And so what they did was they ran us through, we went through the ROTC building, the Reserve Officer Training Corps building, and they set up these things where they inoculated us using an air hypo, just like you saw in Star Trek. The psh, like no needle, it's just with very compressed tiny air through the pores of the skin. They inoculated almost 20,000 people within like a week. And that became a sort of modeled how to do mass inoculations over the course of many things, and the meningitis outbreak was stopped. And I had that done. We went through, they did the thing in the arm, and then we all got Ben and Jerry's, which was very nice of them. But like that was directly inspired by the hypo in Star Trek. So like that's super, super cool. Yeah, cyberpunk. Yeah, cyberknife, cyberpunk. So wild. Oh, that's great, Hilmis. That's great. So she's doing pretty well then. How's your dad, Hilmis? Wild. Super wild. Your dad is doing good? That's good. I'm glad. Yeah, that's great, Mar. Mar, when are you having this done? Sign this. You're waitlisted for Sunnybrook in Toronto. Okay. Okay. Is that, Mar, is that all covered under like the health system? Is that covered in Canada? Under health insurance there? Mass Effect month. Oh, 6 months, I see. Oh. As it should be, because healthcare is a right. It is a right. I wish my country got the memo. But yes, I'm really happy, Mara, that that's the case. All right. We are going to head out. I'm not stopping the stream yet. Good turnout for this. I'm really happy about this. It needs to be well funded. Good turnout for this. So don't leave. I'm going to leave myself, but we'll keep talking. I'm going to go get some tea. All right, we're traveling together. Tea. That's right. I said it. Say it again. Oh, that's very cool, Echo. That would make me cry, all right. It's okay. All right, that was pretty good. That was good food. All right, so now we're going to go get tea, chat. And you can play along at home by seeing where we're going. Oh my gosh, it's bright out here. Beautiful day today. Look at that. Blue sky. Here we go. Here's what matters, chat. Yeah, let's go. You cut Huskies. You approve of their floor? Yeah, it's not great. I mean, although I will say that it depends on where you are, obviously. The income tax in Connecticut's not bad. See, Connecticut has a surplus now. So Connecticut can actually afford to start putting some of this stuff back in, because Connecticut's doing pretty well financially. So, we can't see where we're going. Look at this. You can't see where we're going yet because I haven't arrived at the place. But you will see.
I will show you in a moment. All right, here we go. So we're going to go to this place over here, which is, gonna wait while this person pulls out very slowly, very carefully. All right, so see if you can see it. I'll show you the sign, chat, and then you can decide if you can see how your Google skills are. All right, see that? Pizza Life. So we're going to a cafe right near Pizza Life. Yeah. So now we're going right next to it. So what's the cafe we're going to is the question. I'm going to see if I can not show the sign. Time to buy the cinnamon buns for lunch. All right, I'm going to show you the sign in a minute. Ready? Ready? There it is. Oh, thank you. Okay. Hello, how are you? Good. Let's see. Hi, just thinking. Give me a second.
Here you are. Thank you so much. Everyone, have a great day.
I actually think I'm going to get a blueberry hibiscus iced tea if I can.
Anything else?
That's it.
Or here to go?
It's for, well, I guess it's to go. It'll start here. I have 4, not 4. Oh well. Okay, thank you very much. All right, I've gotten a blueberry hibiscus iced tea, chat. Thank you very much. That's great, thanks. All right. So here we go. It's a blueberry hibiscus tea. Actually, not too bad comparatively. It wasn't very far, but I walked down there because it's a lot easier. Where is the cat? Yeah, blueberry hibiscus iced tea. Whoops. Sorry. God bless America. This case, I have like one of those ring mount things, but it's a little... Here, I'm going to put it on top of this. Wait a second here. While Minecraft modder, that fellow's going through a rough time, mental disabilities, struggles to get a permanent job, has difficulties paying rent, is now in danger of being evicted, wants to request disability, and not allowed to have any income. Donation he gets from Patreon for modding is too much for disability to be approved. If she stops Patreon, she doesn't have any income anymore. Cannot pay for rent, meds, food. Oh my gosh. Is she American, Effect Life? All right, here we go. What is that? It's good. It tastes like blueberry iced tea. I guess so. It does look like a lettuce head, doesn't it? It's good. Yeah, I struggle. I really have a hard time. Let me restart my sentence for the 6th time. I'm really sorry to hear that. And I think it is kind of an abomination that I live in the richest country in the world. Not really that close.
largest market in the world, richest country in the world, which doesn't think of healthcare as a right. It's gotten closer to it. It was only 2010 that federally the government acknowledged that healthcare should be provided in the Affordable Care Act. That's the only reason my cousin, who finally did pass away, she lived for another decade because of the Affordable Care Act. So I get very squinting, twitchy when people are kind of like, oh, we can't afford it. Bullshit. Bullshit, we can't afford it. Yes, we can. And so when I hear stories like that, people should not have to be running GoFundMes to manage their care. And it's just, yeah, come on. I mean, right. And Mar, and tell me, I want to ask you this question quickly. I don't want to go too far down this political road, but I will say this. Tell me this, Mar. You're, as a Canadian, would you rather not have to, because this is the argument that's made here, nah, but you wouldn't want to have the trade-offs with Canada, because then, no one in Canada wants their health care. I've never talked to an actual Canadian who doesn't actually want their health care. Like, there may be issues and things to resolve, but I've never heard anyone who's like, oh yeah, let me trade it for American health care. And I'm lucky in that I have pretty good health insurance through my employer, and I've been at the same employer now for over 21 years. So I'm very lucky with that. But it should not be a lottery. It should not be a guess. It should not be like, oh, I'm lucky because I happen to get the right job. It is, we are the richest country in the world. We can 100% afford it. It's just a fact. Yeah, it pisses me off, Marcy, because I have many Canadian friends, as you know, and I have talked to them, and I've never had a single one of them be like, oh yeah, listen, I would want to trade it. Why would you? What? Ugh, don't lie. Sorry. The U.S. does some things that are valuable. The U.S. does some things that I think are to be appreciated. But the U.S. does a lot of things that I just am like, ugh. Anyway. Well, it's funny you mentioned that Affect Life about Kathy Rain, because I don't know if you've all been noticing this. Oh my God, Imaginary Exponent, I didn't know that. I'm going to come, Echo, let me come back to the Kathy Rain question in just a moment. Imaginary Exponent, I had no idea you live in Ukraine. Do you live in Kyiv? Because you know that we have on my channel the ! Ukraine command, which I've had on there. You live in Kharkiv. Oh my God. I mean, it's going to sound ridiculous, like you don't already know this, but be safe. And second, like, I have enormous admiration for what the Ukrainians have gone through. And my friend Emily Bell, of course, with Athos Arts, is just producing now a book called The Factory by a man who was killed on the front in Ukraine. And obviously they have a Ukrainian anthology that they were able to kickstart and fund. Yeah. No, listen, I have enormous respect for what you're going through. And I can't even imagine it. But, like, much love and respect, seriously. And please do keep us posted. I had no idea that you lived in Ukraine. Wow. Yeah, it's all a great mess. I can compare healthcare. I continue to believe, though, and also, can I apologize on behalf of my country that it took us months to get you the funding that you should have had months ago, but at least our system is so effed up, but at least we did, thanks to Biden and the others, manage to get the money that but anyway, I do believe Ukraine is going to win this war in the end, but enormous respect. So, yeah, really, I did not know that, Imaginary Exponent, but hang in there. Echo, to go back to your line, to go back to your question, if you look at the shorts, yeah, no, of course, Congo, there are many things throughout the world, but it doesn't mean that can be a proxy for understanding these problems that exist outside of Ukraine. Like, there are problems elsewhere too, but Ukraine can kind of unite us in a way that will make it easier to help the Congos of the world and the many other places where where help is needed. But Echo, to go back to your Kathy Rain line, I wanted to say, for those of you who haven't done it, please do follow me on YouTube. Actually, it just struck me that I'm probably broadcasting on YouTube without realizing it right now. I wonder if mobile does that. Well, if it does, whoever's watching me on YouTube, I apologize because I can't see it when I'm doing a mobile stream like this. But exclamation point ARFTube in chat, if you go to my YouTube channel and follow me there, I've been doing a bunch of shorts now with live suing, has been doing shorts, and one of my ones that's the most popular, I only just started doing them, but there's a new one going live in about 35-40 minutes on my channel, also on my Gen GM show that I do with Zach Clay. Okay, good. That's good, actually, yeah, because I don't have control over that. Good. Awesome. That's actually really good. I don't want to be live on YouTube right now because I don't have control over it, so that's good. Hey, Triffid, good to see you. Yes, definitely support Athos if you can because they really are doing important work. So one of my most popular shorts is from Kathy Rain, and I actually have two things up there based on Kathy Rain. So that thing is a very short-worthy thing. I'll tell you what, the shorts, man, I have gotten something like 5 subscribers with very little fanfare because I wanted to test it out. I've gotten like 5 new subscribers over the last day or so, and like something like thousands of views on the shorts because my goodness. So, okay, sounds good. Have a good work day today, Hillness. Don't work too hard, all right? And I'll see you soon. But yeah, it's the heck was I just talking about? Oh yeah, the shorts. So the shorts are like have actually been a real kind of revelation to me in terms of how many views and things like that those get. So anyway, one of my views is on Kathy Rain, so that's one of the big ones. But I have one of my favorite ones recently from Black Geyser. My Black Geyser playthrough is going live at noon, so let me see if I missed anything while I was going through here. I know. That's the next thing I need to do is to start kind of get this up on TikTok as well, and I need to figure out how to schedule it. See, the YouTube scheduling is easy. Mike, I have a TikTok account, but I really wish that it were easier to schedule. Maybe you could tell me this actually, because Mike also has done a little bit of help me out with this a little bit early on. Mike, I need to know from you. I would love to pick your brain about this. Is there an easy? I think that's what it is, Triffid, and I think the shorts feed just really, and there's lots of comments and likes as well, so it's not like bots or others. There's people actually commenting on the videos. But is there an easy way on desktop to schedule it for TikTok? Can you even schedule on TikTok? I guess you can, because that's one thing I have not done as much. The YouTube I'm very used to, so that was easy, but I wish there was like a one-stop shop where you could go, you put it here, and then you schedule for these things. Because now live suing is doing the shorts, sending them along to me, and then I can schedule a bunch at once, and then like I don't have to think about it again. I mean, I know there's a desktop. I know that you can access it on desktop, but Metricool. I've never heard of this. What is Metricool? Is it like a... although I will note that as I've been getting ready for ARFCon, I have found a Blue Sky scheduler. For those of you who use Blue Sky, there's a thing called Deck Blue, and it's an individual developer. If you support the Patreon at the $2 level per month, you can get, I think you can schedule 10 posts at a time. Up to 10 at a time, and if you do $3, you can schedule like 30 at a time. I don't need to schedule that many, but you could schedule a ton, and it's like TweetDeck used to be on the old Twitter. Now there's BlueDeck. So, but anyway, Metricool. How much is it, Mike? Do you know? Obviously, you know, you do it. How much is it to use Metricool? Because that's interesting. I should start doing this more on TikTok as well. For those of you, by the way, who may have stopped in late, definitely follow Wholesome Horror Gaming, who's an incredibly nice guy and super knowledgeable about tech, very good role player, burgeoning writer, burgeoning author, etc. You have... Whoa. Okay, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. I have TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. I do have LinkedIn, but... Oh, well, no, to be fair, it has a little bit echo. There's a vibe to it that was kind of cool. I don't think it's been on my mind as in like a, man, I've been thinking about that game all day type of thing, but there is a vibe to it that I really like. And so I have been thinking about that, yes. Nah, no Threads and Mastodon. I'm not a Threads guy myself because I don't love Facebook. I'm not really on Facebook, to be honest, because I have major problems with Meta. Mastodon, the problem with Mastodon is that I feel very much like whenever I'm talking to people about Mastodon, like true believers, it's $13 a month. Okay, interesting. Yeah, if I would be interested in Metricool. I need to make sure to look that up. Mike, would you mind terribly much? Would you mind sending me a DM on Discord, and just because I'm away from my computer, obviously, and say something like, hey, check out Metricool, just so I remember the word? Because I would make a note on my phone, but I'm using my phone. That would be cool. Oh, you just have? Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. But what I was going to say was LinkedIn has been depressing lately. Yeah, the thing about Mastodon is I always feel like I feel the same way that I feel when I'm talking to folks about Linux, which is like there's this very small and extraordinarily dedicated group of people who are like, Mastodon, have you heard the good news about Mastodon? And I'm like, I still find Mastodon not intuitive. I really like Blue Sky right now because Blue Sky to me feels like what Twitter ought to be. I basically want Twitter, but not run by a fascist billionaire. Like, and like, you know, who therefore doesn't make stupid decisions, who allows people to block and mute, who doesn't platform fascists, you know, that kind of thing, right? And so Mastodon feels so decentered and disconnected to me that I don't quite, you know, people are always like, you think of it like email. I'm like, I don't want to think of it like email. I want to think of it like a place where I go to be part of the community and the marketplace of ideas. And in Twitter, that's become extremely hard because it's so buried in ads and fluff. It would be like having a philosophical discussion in the middle of Times Square or something in New York. And then, you know, other sources that don't do this, you know. Oh, for me, it was the Grows. The Grows was always huge on this. Was always huge on Linux. Yeah, like, I mean, and it's cool. Whatever people want to use is totally fine, of course. I in principle, like, I like the principle of it, but it just, man, Mastodon is not intuitive to my brain. Oops, there we go. Oh, you didn't see over half the healthcare talk? Yeah, we talked a fair bit about it, Effect Life. Oh, really? Hatnix went open source. I didn't know that. No kidding. Boy, that's... Huh. Well, it's not like there's incredible discoverability on Twitch either, I guess. So, in that sense. By the way, question chat. How's the video and the audio quality of this? How are you folks finding the video and the audio quality? Like, can you hear it okay? Does it look good? Because I always, whenever I do a mobile stream, I want to see how it is in terms of the quality. Interesting. Okay, awesome. Video and audio is good. Cool. That's cool. I love me my OnePlus. No, right. No, that's interesting. I'll have to think about that, Mike. Oh, yeah. Ever thought of moving to Canada? You mean how many times per day have I thought about that more? We'll see how the election goes. Okay. Yeah, the background blender noises. Oh, that's true. That's true. I could go outside, but I was thinking about the fact that the sun might be sort of in the way of everything. Listen, I mentioned before, I think before you were on, Mar, that I've always thought of myself as a vaguely displaced European. but there's Canadian also. There's a lot to like about Canada. The sun is a deadly laser. No, listen. The problem is that everyone always says that, and they're like, I'm leaving, and that's like, not easy to pick up and go. But if we ever got to a situation where I really thought that like my family's life and were at risk, I would have to take whatever skills and abilities I had and move. It would be very hard to manage. I don't, but so. Yeah. But it's not, Oh, a ring mount. So it's just what it is the back of the case. I can't show it to you because the case is on, and if I take it off, it'll mess with the buttons. But there's a ring on the back of it that you fold out, and then it becomes like a kickstand, like on a bike. So a kickstand for your phone case. And it hooks up to like magnetic mounts, like in the car or stuff like that. Just really, really complicated. Actually, yeah, Imaginary Exponent. There's I know a fellow science fiction author, Annie Belay, ended up moving to the Netherlands and basically transitioned over. And of course, Tari Toons right now, originally German, is living in the Netherlands with her boyfriend. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, it's because it's very strange. In some ways, I consider myself a citizen of the world. It's sort of an accident of birth that I ended up in the United States, right? That I was born in New York. I do love the state of Connecticut where I live now. There are a lot of things about New England that I appreciate. I do think that America, at its best, can be a positive light in the world at its best. It's so often not at its best, But, I really look forward to meeting people when I travel different places when I'm able to do so. And, yeah, I'm not married to, my country, right or wrong. No. I think it's important that I continue not only to protect my family, but to try to do what I can in the world and to be an advocate for an ally, an advocate, a positive voice. And it's easier for me to do that when I am not at risk of my life. So, it's hard because obviously you don't want to just abandon ship when things go badly, because people who cannot abandon ship are then left behind to try to deal with it on their own. So that's why, when people talk about the South of America or south of the U.S. should just secede or we should cut them loose, like, you can't do that, right? Like, it's frustrating. I'm not going to be going to Texas or Florida anytime soon. But you can't just cut all those people who live there who did not vote for these people that are disenfranchised. You can't do that. So, Also, I don't know whether I'd love that amount of snow. I love the winter too. I don't know that I'd want as much of a winter, Mar, as the Canadians get. I'm not sure about that. But there's a lot of things to love about Canada. Yeah, yes, but you don't. It is a big circle. Yes, it's like a big ring that just like unfolds. In fact, I can hold it from the ring. Right now, I'm holding it from the ring. So, okay, yep, I will. Toronto stays mild. I don't know, though, if you talk to some people, I don't know, Mara, if I talk to some people like Marie, who lives in Ottawa, Amal, who lives in Ottawa, Shadowed, who lives... Gosh, I don't remember where Shadowed lives, but it's not in Toronto. Yeah, but everyone says that, like, Toronto is not real Canada. There's got to be a reason that everyone except Toronto hates the Maple Leafs, right? Yeah, Fleos is in Alberta, and Kilgore moved to Newfoundland. Saskatchewan, okay. Does he live in central Canada? Yeah. You live in northern Ontario. Are you familiar with, to the north, well, actually, no, this isn't that close. North of Montreal, there is a Romanian commune called Val David that I went to when I was quite young. I probably was like 13, 14. Him and Izzy's TARDIS are in Saskatchewan. Oh, okay. But anyway, it's called Val David. It did not have vampires. It was very beautiful. It had like beautiful stream and everything. But yeah, I drove across a lot of Canada when I was a kid with a Romanian poet and her son, who was Canadian, and my dad was translator. My dad won the American Literary Translators Association Prize, which is kind of like the Pulitzer for translation, for the poems of a woman named Flavia Cosma. 47 poems is what he won the award for. And I went across Canada with her and her son when I was a kid. You're 6 hours north of Toronto. Okay. Jeez. I often forget how absolutely ridiculously big Canada is. 6 hours north of Toronto. If I went 6 hours north of me, that would put me into Maine. In fact, if I went 6 hours north, I couldn't quite get into Canada. But if I went 6 hours north and I booked it, I could probably get past. I'd get out of Connecticut, I'd get into Massachusetts, through Massachusetts. I would probably be in Vermont or New Hampshire. They don't fight in Canada, Div. Nobody fights in Canada. They apologize to each other. Why would you fight in Canada? You just give each other maple syrup. That's why they fight in hockey, because, you know. I wanted to see how many stereotypes of Canada I could get into one comment. Poutine, right. That's true. I needed to mention poutine. And then I forgot poutine, eh? Listen, whatever Shadowed Mage, if he shows up, Shadowed Mage is no one to blame but himself, okay? Because Shadowed Mage posted on his Twitter once, was talking about how poutine is like, you know, there's certain ways to do it, and you have to have a certain kind of poutine. So he played right into his own stereotype, okay? That's right. I'm going to apologize to you. I'll apologize to you. Don't you tell me how much I can apologize to you. I did mention hockey, but not curling. Kilgore very, very passionate about prominent curling abilities. Yep. I didn't think lacrosse was a Canadian thing. Is it? I don't think it is. How to say and do poutine. Oh, okay. Yeah. Like, there's a certain way to do it. You don't want to mess around with it. Apparently, there's, like, regional differences. Like, that's a certain kind of poutine in this region of Canada and another kind. You invented lacrosse? Really? I did not know that. A bowl of wet fries, is that good? I didn't know that. I didn't know that Canada had invented lacrosse. All right, wait. So Canada invented hockey, curling, and lacrosse. Are those the three big sports that they invented? Or is there another sport they invented that I don't know about? What? No, they didn't. That was Naismith, and he was in Springfield, Massachusetts. Disputed. Is that like how everybody made the hamburger? Everyone's like, no, I made the hamburger. Yeah, lies. Sure. Native Americans invented lacrosse. Okay. But obviously northern Native Americans then, right? Like a tribe from the north, from Canada, the region which is now Canada. I see. Interesting. Yeah, basketball. Boston Celtics, Eastern Conference Finals. Let's go Celts. Playing the Indiana Pacers. After the Knicks lost. It's a shame. Gets you right here. Right here. Right in the Venetian logo. That's interesting, though. I did not know that they invented lacrosse. That it was so must have been in the region of Canada. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Yep. I thought you'd be excited that we got Chrono Wolf back, Echo. I told you we were going to get him back this year. Yeah, I'm going to be very excited. I am pumped up for ArvCon, everybody. Expedition for the Mysterious Peaks Friday night. Then Zach Clay, first part of the concert. Then Saturday is noon. We're going to have the interview with the 3 scientists. And then at 12:45, I believe it is, we've got the finale of Talisman Adventures plus the big announcement. And then we have at 3:30, I believe it is, the Star Wars one-shot with Johnny Pittman, Video Store Cowboy, and the scientists. And then we've got Kilgore Trout for his part of the concert, and then Chrono Wolf for his part of the concert, and then Community D&D that Saturday night. Yeah, Indy couldn't this year because Indy's on a business trip. He felt really bad. Otherwise, I would have had 4 this year. But Indy is going to be back next year. Chrono couldn't do it last year because he was, business trip thing. So, exactly. That is the case, Mar. But yes, and then Sunday, we have the Eberron Oracle of War 8-hour marathon. And then Monday, we have the premiere of Dune. So, and the wrap-up. So, 5,000 is our goal this year, and it's a good-sized number, but I think we can reach it. Figuring out the goal from year to year is always as much art as science. We have some great giveaways. All of our sponsors are back, basically, except for we lost one sponsor because the people there have left that I had contact with, but then we have another sponsor back that wasn't here 2 years ago and is back with us again. So I'm very excited about it. It's always a lot of work, but it's worth it. It's worth it. So I hope that people will mark their calendars. I hope you will donate if you can do so. Please don't do so if it's going to put you in any financial territory that you can't be in. But obviously, donations are really helpful if you can, and spreading the word is really important if you can. And yeah, I've got the Tiltify pages set up. I have the overlay. I got the fanfare. I went through the fanfares twice. There was one that has a high trumpet, like beep beep, and then it's like bum bum. So there's a high trumpet thing. Yes, that happens during a sensible European time. But Effect Life, but listen though, the Talisman finale is at a reasonable European time, right? That'll still be reasonable. That's 12:45 Eastern. That's still reasonable. Even the first concert, even Kilgore, will be starting. Let me think about that. No, not Kilgore. He'll be too late. But even the Star Wars game will be reasonable. So. Daytime energy. It's so true that, it is very true that being able to do this with this sort of daytime energy here is yeah. I know, Mike. Listen, time zones. Time zones are a thing. If I ever move to Europe, then we'll be in a better spot. If I move to Canada, I don't expect I would move west. If I moved to Canada, it would be Toronto, Ottawa, that kind of thing. No, it's because that way we can see what the schedule is for each day, Echo, that's all. I think it's a good idea. With daytime energy, it was chaos. I always feel really bad that I can't do it any earlier. If I had cell service, though, so Echo, what's the cell service like in Norway? Obviously, not the big cities, obviously Oslo, Bergen, I get, but is cell service fairly consistent through much of Norway, some of Norway, any of Norway, all of Norway? Because that's the thing, right? Because I'm here to tell you, the stream I'm doing here is definitely not from the top of a mountain or in the woods. Not necessarily imaginary. If I moved to Europe, what I would do is I would have to shift my audience. I would be streaming more for European-friendly time zones, and there would be some crossover there, you know. So, and that would just be a thing that would happen. Because I'm not going to start, you know, as it is. I used to stream even later than this. Most of the time now, when I'm doing a stream on a Thursday or a Saturday, I usually wrap around between 12:30 a.m. and 1 a.m. Eastern. And I'm a little bit of a night owl, but that's even pushing it a bit, right? If I started, so I just like to have a good-sized, good-length stream. But honestly, I would do it whenever is, you know, consistent for this. Not yet. I have made an effort to. St. John's has a campus in Rome, and so I have made some sort of like I put out feelers about the possibility of doing work, doing some teaching for some world building stuff in Rome. In fact, I had a program put together which was called a world building program that was going to maybe be taught in Rome if I could get enough students to do it. The problem was that all happened, and then in late 2019 is when I put this together, and so we started trying to get students in early 2020. And then you may have heard of something that happened around that time, and it rhymed with Loblid. And so then they shut the Rome campus down, and the program collapsed, and that was that. So, yeah. So that was what happened then. But now I'm starting to talk to people about doing it again because I would like to do it, and I think there is value in doing it. I don't know that I would permanently do that right now. Again, pending the outcome of certain elections. I don't know that I would do that full time, but yeah. Yeah, no, it was just, so the program was never able to obviously go anywhere because we never got students because they shut it down. And I left campus, we went through March, and then we went remote in March. And then all of fall 2020 was remote, so I taught the whole semester remotely. And then I was on sabbatical spring of 2021, which is not what I had been planning. Spring 2021, I was not planning to wear masks, avoid crowded places, and move my house and move to another state. But that's what ended up happening in 2021. I can't believe that was 3 years ago now. Wow, it's wild. But art becomes Italiano. I would love the opportunity to do that. You know, one thing I've always thought would be fun to do as well, that I've had in the back of my mind at some point. My father was a college professor, as many of you know. I've said this before, but he did a a Fulbright scholarship. He got a Fulbright scholarship originally. He won one to go to Yugoslavia, and that was in the 1990s when Tito, basically Soviet Union was collapsing, like it was not safe. So instead they shifted it to Bulgaria. No, 3 years. 3 years from the 2021. I'm talking about the sabbatical. Echo was 2021. That was what I was talking about. Not COVID. I know it's been 4 years since COVID, but I meant 2021 when I had the sabbatical. 3 years since then. But so yeah, my dad went to Sofia University in Bulgaria. And I always thought it would be cool to go back there, just to sort of retrace his steps a little bit, because, you know, he was doing that in 1991 or 92, so I was in college, but I lived at home for the first 2 years before I ended up moving to on campus for 93, 94 is when I moved on campus, but before that I was off campus. So yeah. You want to move back to Poland or move to Japan? You're leaning more to Japan, want to get your treatment first, yeah. Interesting. I don't know, Mark. Given the current situation in Poland, would you want to, I mean, I know your home is your home, obviously, but it feels like that might be a little risky right now, no? Yeah. I'm hearing all of this, enjoying all of this travel discussion. Still leaning Japan, okay. I'm still hearing all this travel discussion, and Wholesome Horror Gaming will uniquely understand, and Triffid Wholesome Horror Gaming and Triffid will understand how much this is making me want to talk about something that I can't talk about yet. But you should all be at ARFCon. You should be at ARFCon when you will learn more about this thing I can't talk about that your discussions of travel are making me think about. I want to say things. I want to communicate things, and I can't because we're not there yet. My discipline, my fabled discipline and patience are coming to the fore. That's it. I'm like, I want to tell everybody. Still waters. What? No. That is imaginary exponent. You have no idea. I'm actually quite disciplined and patient, or I wouldn't. Oh my God, there's so many things that would not work out well if I weren't. I will hang in there. You got auto-modded? Hey. Listen. I have signed a few Hold on a second, Blender. I have signed a couple of NDAs in my life, and I held them completely in confidence, and I did not break NDAs, okay? I'm just excited. That's all. About things. I remember when I signed an NDA about doing an audiobook for Shadowrun, and I now am in a position a few months ago where I was able to announce that I did the reading of an audiobook for Shadowrun, which should be out soon. It's not yet, but it should be coming out soon. And I was able to keep that to myself. You know, but a lot of work. It was a lot of freaking work, but it was a good time. Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a good summer. It's going to be a good summer. For anyone who's in the one thing I can announce about travel is that if anyone is going to be in the Pittsburgh area in 2 weeks, the first week of June, I will be there for Three Rivers Comic-Con. There's always a couple of Arvanauts that I'm able to see there around that time, so that's always a good time. And then I will be in July up in Boston. I will be in, I believe it's in Somerville? I don't think that's right. I need to see. It's a suburb of Boston anyway, or close to Boston, where I'm going to be at ReaderCon. And ReaderCon's guest of honor is Amal, my friend Amal El-Matar, and I'm going to be doing panels there. So I will be there, and that's mid-July. So I can definitely make those announcements, that if anyone is in that area, I'd love to see you. I know. No, I know you were. I actually, you know, one of the things that I thought about, I was talking to Emily about this from Athos Arts Imaginary, and I was going to say at some point that I felt like it would be, I think, inspiring to me when the war is over to be able to go to Ukraine and go to Kyiv. I felt when I went to Germany, and this was back in the year 2000, I believe. So it was after, obviously, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the wall was gone by then. But being able to stand there, right, and being able to be in the place where the wall had been was very powerful for me. There was a resonance there, is the way I would describe it. And so, yeah, it was very resonant, and I'd like to maybe do that someday in Kyiv as well. Yes, there's some very cool stuff for Gen Con. Yeah, we have our schedule that we've put forward. Yeah, we're excited about that. Sure, but I'm saying, right, but the thing is, literally my reason for saying that, Imaginary, is I would not want to distract or to in any way be part of this. Like, it's not me being like, I'm a tourist and I want to see what it's like. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be one of the people getting in the way. But I do want to be one of the people, and I've been trying to support in my own way. That Ukraine link links to many places that are supposed to help civilians, and I want to be able to do that in my own way. But I think symbolically and resonantly, there's a lot of importance there too. I have a chunk of the wall on my shelf that came with my Game World in Conflict years ago. Oh, really? Yeah, we actually have a little bit of the Berlin Wall as well. My wife had actually been there during the 80s when it still existed. Like, she went to West Germany and went up to the wall, and then was there when it was gone again. So it was even more crazy for her to sort of see that experience. I remember watching on TV, watching the wall fall, and just seeing like the news reports with people standing on top of the wall as it was taken down. Amazing. It was amazing. We want to talk about the experience of living through history. Yeah. Good friend of mine, actually, his parents were both scientists, and after Chernobyl, they left Ukraine because they knew what was likely to happen next. And they ended up leaving Ukraine and then moving to the United States. And I met him many years later when he went to Brandeis University, where I was doing my doctorate, and I was coaching the debate team, and he was a debater there. So, but my friend Kevin Grinberg is his name, originally from Ukraine. Yeah, yeah. 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 Just the, and I mean, I admire, obviously, not only the strength and the resistance and the defiance. I admire not only that, but the level of Ukrainian culture and the distinctive nature of how Ukraine is as a country is like, there's a lot. There's a lot. Oh, goodness, Mar. Yeah. Well, there's a reason that Poland has been lockstep with Ukraine, right? Because Poland knows what it's all about. Like back leading up to that, before then. And Lech Walesa and all that. I don't know if Imaginary you're familiar with, so there's the show Ukraine's Got Talent. And for years, I've shown, for my creative writing class, this sand artist. If you look on YouTube, Ukraine's Got Talent sand art, any of you can do this. It's really extraordinary. It's really extraordinary. Yeah, exactly, Imaginary. It's really extraordinary as it exists. I don't know if you know this sand artist, though, who's Ukrainian. It's really amazing stuff to watch. And it's just an expression to me, a lot of the spirit that I imagine for people from Ukraine. So... Yeah. But that sand art thing, which is from me, it's at least probably 12, 13 years old now. It's like an 8-minute long sand art thing, but it's amazing. Really, really good. So cool. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. I've seen you in, obviously hanging around here and in GOG and so on, and over in several other channels for quite a while, Imaginary. I just had no idea that you were from Ukraine, so, yeah. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Hey, me neither. Yes! No worries, none of us did. I don't know.
Little Arv is doing quite well. She's doing quite well. She has just been inducted into the National Honor Society, or I should say she's been accepted. So she will be inducted on Wednesday. The problem is that she has she's doing theater tech at her arts program school that she goes to as well the same night. So she's trying to figure out how to get inducted in the National Honor Society, dressed up, right? And then we somehow drive her 15 minutes to where the other school is so she can get there for a call that's going to have happened like an hour after the induction ceremony, and I'm like, oh my god. So my wife and I are going to be like logistic planning, but yeah, she's been inducted in the National Honors. She's in the National Honor Society, which is a great honor. Exceptional student, so she's doing very well. She's still working on a bunch of things that are. I'll explain that in a minute. She's working on a bunch of things that are. Socially figuring out her social circumstances. She's 16, right? So she's like, it's an age where you have a lot of that you have to figure out. So she's managing, but she's, resilient, and she's worked so hard on kind of her emotional grounding and everything. And yeah, she's it's the light of my life. Just, an honor to be her dad, like I've always said. The National Honor Society is a long-time merit-based society based on grades. So if your grades and then your general like community standing and stuff like that in the school community, it's voted on by teachers and people like that who induct you, and then there's a whole national premise of it. My mother was in it. I certainly wasn't. I didn't start getting my honors stuff. I got all of my honors society stuff when I was in college, when I figured out to be a good student. In high school, B- average, 2 thumbs this guy. So I was not a National Honor guy. I didn't pick that all up until I got into college. But my daughter did it earlier, so she's doing super, super well. That's Little Arv. Little Arv. Mini Arv is my son, and Mini Arv is also doing well, and he is going to be finishing up. Get this, my son is turning 8 years old in about 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And he's going to be in 3rd grade in the fall. My daughter is going to be a junior in high school. What even is time? My daughter is going to be a junior in high school. My son is going to be a 3rd grader. What even is time? Mini Arv is 8. 8. Almost 8. 3 weeks, he'll be 8. Yeah, wild. It's wild. I know, right? This is what I'm saying. When I started streaming in 2012, April 2012, when Little Arv was 4 years old, and now 16, and when my son, of course, was not even born. It would be 4 years before my son was born. Time goes, man. That's a very wise and thoughtful thing to say, Imaginary, and yes, I know the corruption and all of that is still a thing, for sure. That's a very thoughtful thing to say, and I hear that completely. But I do want to say, as you say, generations of cultural erasure took their toll. I've always thought, and I don't know if you feel this way, but it always struck me this way about Yugoslavia. Right, Affectla? Isn't that wild? It's wild. But I've always thought that communism sort of just put everything like in stasis almost, and then when communism then left again, it started moving again, but it was like there were decades during which so little had shifted in certain ways. And so, yeah, I understand that about the figuring out things, and I totally hear you and respect that, but I do want to say, and I'm sure you know this, that any society which has been through that kind of cultural erasure, look at my good friend Brandon O'Brien from Trinidad and Tobago. Look at all of, people who live in Haiti. We see right now the effects of colonialism on what poor Haiti is struggling with, right? South America, Central America, Latin America, and the Caribbean, affected by this same sort of imperialism and cultural and remnants and the sort of cultural appropriation and repression and erasure. So I guess what I would say is those things do remain, they do stay. Oh, no, I agree. What I'm talking about is I agree, absolutely tried to erase it. The same thing happened with the United Kingdom, with Great Britain. When England Imperial England was trying to erase those things in the same way. Ireland, Scotland, and so on. Yeah, all I mean by stasis is I just mean the political sort of like all of the stuff that that was starting to fiddle with it. People were working things out that got put on hold while this massive like boot, somewhat literally at times, came down, and it was just, as you say, trying to erase it as much as possible. Totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah. Yep. But it's important to note, though, that it takes the work of good people and good people as part of a society to... It takes the work of a good group of people that do care to bring this together and to help make that happen. And so I guess my point is that people are the ones that figure things out in the end. And so I have great respect for the fact that you are in the process of working those things out, is what I would say. So kudos to you is what I'm saying. Is what I'm saying. God knows America doesn't have it all figured out. America has not yet grappled with the original sin of slavery, really. America is only, we still have conservative monuments, named after racists that fought to maintain slavery and segregation and racism. So, America's figuring it out too. But good people everywhere are working it out, and there is progress. It's slow and halting, and 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 4 steps forward. But there is progress being made. But it takes a while. It takes a long while. Us doing this, by the way, chatting in a small way, just with the small group of people with each other here, is a part of that process. Always. So. All right, chat. Well, I really, really enjoyed this a lot. I'm going to head out, though, because I need to pick up my car, which is now ready. Probably will not be streaming today. I thought about maybe doing a bonus stream, maybe, but I don't know. I'm glad that I was able to do this with all of you lovely folks. So I really had a good time today, and maybe I should do this more often if I can. But I'm going to head out. I will be back tomorrow. Now, right now, Tari and I are going to be doing some Beowulf Age of Heroes tomorrow, but that's still a little tentative. So, hang in there. We'll do something tomorrow for sure. And then one thing I know for sure is that tomorrow at 4:15 p.m. Eastern, Wholesome Horror Gaming and I, that's literally them calling to tell me my car's ready, Wholesome Horror Gaming and I and the rest of the crew will be playing D&D with GOG Ghosts of Saltmarsh. So definitely that. And if you did like this, remember that we do have chats like this all the time on our channel. So definitely do that. Definitely check out my YouTube channel. And please do recommend and spread the word about those shorts, both here and on Gen GMs. It was a fun one, Effect Life. That Eberron stream, it was a fun one. I hope you'll enjoy it. So yeah, it's going to be a good time. Thank you, everybody, for being with me, though. You're all lovely. You know how to support, subscribe, do all the things. Thank you, Echo, for the gift subs today. And thank you, everybody, for being here. I love you all. And I will see you folks probably Tuesday, noon, for some stuff with Tari. And then 4:15 p.m. Eastern on GOG.com for Ghosts of Saltmarsh. Thursday, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Friday, OrfCon. So that'll be the deal. Until then, though, much love. Bye, everybody. Be good to each other.